Everyone thought the powerful Mafia was infertile, but they didn't know that the major reason was because his manhood couldn't stand, no matter how curvy, wild, or willing the women all over the world were around him. His body was numb, his soul colder than his empire. But one night in Seoul, Anabel, with trembling hands and sad eyes, woke the beast he thought was dead. He didn't touch her out of desire. It was something darker, something he couldn't name. And when the night ended, he thought he'd never see her again. He was wrong, because that night didn't just awaken him. It cursed him. His name, Rafael Romano, a sexy name for a hot mafia like him. And here was Anabel in the Velvet Heaven Club. Lights painted her skin gold as she swayed on the pole. Every move precise, graceful, hypnotic. She wasn't just beautiful. She was art in motion. Soft curves, flawless skin, a face that made even the drunkest men go silent. But behind the shimmer was a secret. She didn't dance for fame. She danced for love. 2 months ago, she took a job at the city's most luxurious club, a place where the rich came to forget their sins. Every spin, every ache, every dollar pressed into her hand, it was all for Dan. Her first love. Her first kiss. The boy she grew up with in the orphanage. The one who promised her when they were 18 years old that he'd marry her and love her forever till their last breaths. Now she was 25 and still hopelessly in love with him. Dan was sick. Or at least, that's what she believed. He needed surgery, expensive, urgent, and since she didn't finish school for a proper career, Anabel knew whining and twisting her waist on the club pole would pay the bills. Taking advantage of her nice figure, she knew she was a very beautiful woman. She knew she drove men crazy. But she was only crazy for Dan. And love made her brave and blind. The crowd roared as the music faded. Her set was over. Her manager handed her a check, her biggest one yet. Enough to finally pay for Dan's operation. She smiled for the first time in weeks, tears of relief threatening to spill. "You'll live, Dan," she whispered, "and we'll finally have our forever." She ran through the night, heels clicking against the pavement, clutching the check like her heartbeat. The hospital's fluorescent lights greeted her with cold calm. She couldn't wait to see him, to tell him he was going to be okay. But the door to his room was slightly open, and inside, she heard a woman and a man moaning, and that sounded like her man, Dan. Female laughter. Dan's hard voice as though he was getting an orgasm. The woman just kept going slowly, and Dan moaned lightly, with every stroke. Anabel froze. Then she pushed the door open. Dan, the man who claimed he couldn't walk, was standing, getting a blowjob from his nurse. He was perfectly fine. His hospital gown loose, his expression guilty. And the nurse beside him, flushed, startled, stumbled back at the sight of her. For a moment, time shattered. The check fell from Anabel's hand. Her chest tightened. The room spun. The love she'd worked for, suffered for, lied for, turned to ashes right in front of her. Dan, her voice trembled. "You can stand." He opened his mouth, searching for a lie, but she didn't let him speak. Her palm struck his cheek, once, twice again. Each slap echoed with every night she'd spent dancing for his fake pain. Hot tears streamed down her face. "I worked for you," she cried, voice breaking. "I sold my pride for you." Dan reached out, but she pulled away, shaking, breathless, broken. The nurse slipped out, shame heavy in the silence. Anabel's sobs filled the space where her faith used to live. The check lay crumpled at her feet, her love story reduced to paper and lies. And as she walked out of that hospital, she prayed to God to take away the pain and love she felt for this man. The heartache she felt was the saddest she felt in her entire life. What's the point of an empire when your bloodline ends with you? Rafael Romano smirked as he walked into the club with his men to seal a deal. Music thundered, deals whispered, and men with guns beneath their suits laughed like kings. In the corner booth, Rafael Minje Romano leaned back, untouched by it all. He was power in a suit, half Korean, half Italian, a man born into violence, raised on control. Nothing about this place impressed him. Not the champagne, not the girls, not their seductive smiles, Any sane man would take a second look at those women, but he didn't. His manhood couldn't stand. Power did. Money did. Fear did. But not desire. Until she stepped into the light. Anabel. The crowd shifted, the music slowed, and for the first time in years, Rafael noticed someone. Her body moved with a rhythm that wasn't just seductive, it was sorrowful, alive, aching. She danced like a woman with secrets, and every spin pulled him closer to them. It was her last day in the club working as a stripper, since it was because of Dan she started it. Rafael Romano blinked, trying to look away. He couldn't. 5 seconds turned into forever. It was absurd. He'd shared not his bed nor feelings. Yet looking at her, something unfamiliar burned beneath his ribs. What is this? He thought. He felt his manhood was hard for the first time. He looked down at it and looked at her. At this point, he felt multiple emotions: surprise, tension, desire for this stranger stripper who looked sad, yet dangerous. She wasn't trying to tempt him. That's what made it worse. Her movements weren't performance. They were pain disguised as grace. And it struck him hard. When she lifted her eyes and found us across the room, the noise disappeared. Her gaze held him there, steady, sad, unafraid. Something in him cracked. He fell back into his chair, breath shallow, jaw tight. He had faced enemies without flinching, watched blood spill without blinking, but this woman, she made him feel. Anabel saw the man staring at her. Dark suit, darker eyes, and for a reason she couldn't name, she didn't look away. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe it was fate. She walked toward him, slow and deliberate, her body still moving to the rhythm. Every step closer made her heart pound louder than the music. When she reached him, she traced a fingertip over his chest, light, trembling. His men stiffened, ready to drag her away. Rafael lifted a hand without looking at them. "Sit down," he said quietly. They obeyed. Anabel didn't know why she did it. Maybe because touching him made her forget Dan for a second. The man who broke her heart no longer owned her pain. Rafael watched her, truly watched her. Her touch wasn't teasing, it was searching. He saw the tears she was hiding, the strength she didn't know she still had. "Why do your eyes look like they're crying?" he whispered breathlessly, heat filling his whole body. Her lips quivered into a sad smile. "Not your business." The air between them shifted, sharp, magnetic. He'd spent years feeling nothing. Now, in seconds, this stranger made him forget who he was. Forget what he'd built his life to protect. Anabel leaned closer. "Take me somewhere quiet," she whispered. He should have said no. He didn't. He stood, towering, silent, and took her hand. The moment their fingers touched, the deal on the table, the guards, the club, none of it mattered. As they disappeared down the hallway, with lustful kisses and touch against each other's body, they entered the room, and fiercely they made love. Rafael did things he didn't know he was capable of doing. The morning light spilled through the wide hotel windows, kissing the sheets tangled around Rafael Romano. For a man who never slept beside anyone, the silence felt peaceful, unfamiliar. He actually slept. For the first time in years, the nightmares didn't come. For the first time, his chest didn't feel hollow. He turned, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips, rare, small, human. The woman who changed everything in one night, but the bed beside him was empty. The silk sheets were cold. The perfume, soft, floral, heartbreaking, lingered on the pillow. She left. He sat up slowly, hand raking through his hair, disbelief tightening his jaw. Women usually clung. They begged for attention, for the illusion of his affection. But this one, the one who made him feel alive, vanished like smoke. And it bothered him. More than it should have. He stood, grabbed his phone, and barked into it. "Get me the club manager. Now." Within an hour, Rafael was back at Velvet Heaven. The morning calm was shattered by the echo of his voice and the click of his men's guns. The club manager, a nervous, sweating man, bowed as the Mafia boss entered. "Mr. Romano, sir." "Spare me," Rafael cut in coldly. "Last night. A dancer, brown skin, eyes that could burn hell itself. I want her found." The manager blinked, terrified. Sir, we have many girls. Rafael's voice dropped, low and dangerous. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. He leaned forward. Whoever finds her gets 10 million. The room fell silent.
10 million.
Every dancer, guard, and bartender froze. In that moment, everyone in the club had a new mission. That night, Velvet Heaven transformed. Girls lined up in shimmering outfits, every shape, every face, but none of them were her. Rafael sat in the VIP booth, expression carved in stone, cigar untouched. Each woman who walked toward him was dismissed with a single glance.
No.
Not her. Next, the manager grew pale. Sir, maybe she was a guest, not a dancer. Rafael slammed his glass down, shattering it. Don't insult me. I saw her perform. He stood, frustrated, the emotion foreign to him. His men exchanged uneasy glances. Their boss never lost control. But tonight, he was pacing, restless, a man possessed. Somewhere in the city, she was out there. And he didn't even know her name. She walked out of his bed and straight into his mind. For a man who never chased women, Rafael Romano was about to start a hunt that would change his life forever. Rain kissed the streets that night, soft, endless silver. Rafael Romano stepped out of his black Maserati, his men close behind, their coats soaked but silent. He'd been chasing a ghost for weeks. And tonight, that ghost had a name. Sir, one of his men whispered, pointing toward a rival club down the street, Scarlet Flame. She works here. Rafael's jaw clenched. The same woman who disappeared from his bed was now working for his enemy. That betrayal hit deeper than any bullet ever could. He adjusted his cufflinks, cold fury burning behind his calm eyes. Let's go. The air was thick with smoke, laughter, and the scent of cheap perfume. Music pulsed through the dim lights as bodies moved under crimson flashes. And there she was, Anabel, dressed in simple black, serving drinks, not dancing this time. But she still carried that quiet fire, that same sadness in her eyes that had made him fall apart the first night he saw her. For a second, Rafael forgot to breathe. His heartbeat quickened, something no woman had ever made happen. He started walking toward her, each step heavy with anger and something else. When she turned and saw him, the glass in her hand trembled before it slipped and shattered on the floor. Their eyes locked. She froze. He didn't. The confrontation. Rafael stopped right in front of her, his voice low, dangerous. You disappeared without a word. And now you're here, serving them? Anabel's chest rose and fell. I don't owe you an explanation. He smirked, stepping closer, his cologne intoxicating and his tone sharper than glass. You left my bed, sweetheart. You think that's something a man like me forgets? Then forget it, she fired back, trying to walk away. He caught her wrist, firm, not rough. Tell me why you're here. Her eyes glistened, full of the pain she'd buried. Because I need to eat, Rafael. Not every woman has the luxury of being powerful. Then she pulled her hand away, voice shaking. I danced once for love, not for lust. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? That one sentence cut deeper than she realized. He'd spent years believing love was a weakness, until her. He laughed bitterly, masking the ache. You're still naive if you think love feeds you. Tell me what you want. I'll buy you out of this place. She stared at him, expression shifting from hurt to fire. You think every woman can be bought, don't you? Her voice was calm, but deadly. Then she whispered, I don't need your money. What I need you to do is to stay away. She turned and walked off before he could speak. His men watched silently, knowing better than to follow. Rafael stood still, his fists clenched at his sides, his pride bleeding quietly. Stay away, he murmured. You don't get to walk away twice. He looked up at the red lights flickering above her name tag. Anabel. The woman who made him feel again and now made him burn. The hunt wasn't over. This time, it wasn't desire. It was war to get her. The next morning, the city whispered his name. Rafael Romano. The man who owned half of Seoul's underworld had just bought the other half, Scarlet Flame, his rival's most prized club. $1 billion deal sealed in less than 12 hours.
Why?
Because of one woman, Anabel. Anabel arrived for her evening shift, tired but relieved to finally have some peace. She hadn't seen Rafael since their confrontation. She told herself she wouldn't let him live rent-free in her mind. But when she entered the club that night, everyone was whispering. The music was lower. The atmosphere strange. "Did you hear?" one of the girls murmured. "The club's been sold. A new owner's taking over tonight." Anabel blinked, confused. Sold? To who? The girl hesitated. To Rafael Romano. The tray slipped from Anabel's hands, crashing to the floor. Every sound in the room vanished.
No.
It can't be him. Her heart pounded as the club doors swung open. There he was, black suit, gloves, watch glinting beneath the lights, walking like he owned the air itself. And now he actually did. His gaze found her instantly. It always did. Like he'd been tracking her heartbeat from across the city. The manager rushed forward, bowing. "Mr. Romano, sir." Rafael's tone was smooth, dangerous. "No need for introductions. I already know who I want to talk to." His eyes didn't leave Anabel. "Everyone out," he ordered. The staff scattered like shadows. Now, only the two of them remained, standing in the middle of the empty club that once belonged to someone else. Now it belonged to him. And so did she. Anabel swallowed hard. "What do you want from me, Rafael?" He smirked faintly. "You're working in my club now. That makes you my employee. You bought this place for what? To humiliate me." He stepped closer.
No.
"To keep you where I can see you." Her breath hitched, a mix of fear and something else. Anger. Confusion. That same dangerous attraction that ruined her life once. "You can't just," she began. He interrupted, voice soft but heavy. "I can. And I did." She looked away, trembling with rage. "You're insane." "Maybe," he replied quietly, "but you walked out of my bed and took my peace with you.
So now you work for me.
Until I decide I'm done." She turned sharply, tears burning her eyes. "You'll never own me." He smiled faintly, though his eyes were storm-dark. "Sweetheart, I already do, even if you hate me for it." Later that night, from his office upstairs, Rafael watched her on the security feed. Not dancing, not smiling, just existing in his world, but not his arms. His fingers hovered above the glass of whiskey on his desk. He told himself this was about control. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. It was about the ache that wouldn't leave, the one woman who slipped away and made him feel alive. The morning after Rafael bought Scarlet Flame, everyone walked on eggshells. The once loud club was now silent, the laughter replaced by whispers of fear. Except her. Anabel walked in, chin high, face bare, eyes steady. She refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Behind the glass walls of his new office, Rafael watched her enter. Every movement of hers, the sway of her walk, the quiet fire in her expression, irritated him and pulled him in at the same time. She was supposed to look afraid. Instead, she looked free. And that made him furious. "Mr. Romano wants to see you," one of his guards said, stopping her as she passed. Anabel didn't flinch. "Tell him I'm busy." The man blinked. He's the owner." "Then he can wait," she cut in, grabbing a tray and walking away. When Rafael heard that, something inside him cracked. He'd ruled entire cities, controlled men twice her size. But this woman? She walked through his empire like he was invisible. He stormed out of his office, his voice echoing across the floor. "Anabel." Every head turned. The music stopped. She froze, then slowly faced him. "Yes, Mr. Romano?" The way she said his name, calm, taunting, hit like a slap. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "When I call you, you come." Her lips curved slightly. "When you pay me, I work. That's all this is." Rafael's jaw clenched. "You think this is just business?" She looked him dead in the eye. "Isn't that what you understand best? Buying, owning, controlling." The words hit harder than any bullet. He didn't respond, just stared at her, anger warring with desire. Because even while she defied him, he wanted her more. Later that night, Rafael found her alone behind the bar, cleaning glasses. The club was almost empty, the lights soft and low. He stood behind her silently. "You're playing a dangerous game," he murmured. Anabel didn't turn around. "Then stop watching me play." His hand gripped the edge of the counter beside her. "You're testing how far you can push me." She turned then, eyes glistening with restrained fury. "I'm not one of your toys, Rafael. You can own the club, the city, but you'll never own me." For a moment, silence hung between them. Thick, charged, suffocating. Then he leaned in slightly, his voice rough. "You're right. I don't own you." A pause. "But I can't stop wanting to." Her breath hitched, and before she could react, he turned and walked away, leaving her trembling. Not from fear, but from everything she refused to admit. It was the weekend, the night was quiet. Too quiet. Rain tapped faintly against the windows of Anabel's small apartment, the kind of silence that only made memories louder. On the floor lay a pile of everything she once held dear, framed pictures, love letters, old shirts, a worn-out scarf that still smelled faintly like him.
Dan.
She lit the match with trembling fingers. For a second, she hesitated, then dropped it. The fire caught quickly, orange and wild, devouring their memories one by one. The picture of their first kiss curled and blackened. The shirt he wore the day he promised forever turned to ash. Anabel's knees gave out, and she sank to the floor, sobbing so hard it tore through the walls. Her chest ached like her heart was clawing to escape. She pressed her palms to the ground, gasping for air, whispering through the pain. "I thought I was fine. I thought it was gone." But it wasn't. Dan still haunted her, his lies, his betrayal, his voice echoing in her mind like a curse. The man she gave her youth to. The man she sold her pride for. The man who made her forget who she was. Her tears blurred the flames as they danced before her eyes, cleansing, consuming, cruel. When the last photograph turned to ash, she sat in the dim glow, her face streaked with tears and soot. Her heart felt hollow, but her mind was sharp. Or should I book a therapy session? She thought about it once, but talking about her pain only made it louder. And Anabel was done being weak. If Dan had played her, she'd learn the game and play it better. Her lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile as she stared into the dying fire. "Rafael Romano," she whispered, voice dripping with quiet vengeance. "I will use him to pass time, so I can get over Dan." She stood up, wiping her tears, her reflection glowing in the glass. No longer the broken girl from the club. This was a woman ready to use her scars as weapons. The flames flickered one last time before dying out. But in her eyes, a new fire had been born, one that even love couldn't extinguish. Dressed in red satin that hugged her like sin and revenge stitched together. Her eyes didn't search the room. They found him immediately, sitting at his corner booth, surrounded by his men. The air inside the scarlet flame shimmered with music and perfume, but Rafael couldn't hear any of it. All he saw was her, Anabel, moving across the room like she owned it. Her every step was slow, confident, deliberate, the kind that made time itself pause. She was supposed to be his employee now, but as she walked toward him, it felt the other way around. Tonight, she wasn't the broken girl he found dancing under the neon lights. She was fire, reborn, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Rafael's throat tightened as she approached his table. His men noticed his sudden stillness, the unreadable look on his face, and quietly drifted away. Anabel didn't say a word. She stood before him, close enough for him to feel her heat. Then she smiled, soft, devastating, and tilted her head. Without asking, she sat on the edge of his table, crossing one leg over the other. The slit in her dress revealed smooth skin that caught the light just right. Her voice came out low, velvet and danger. "You look tense, boss." Rafael leaned back, eyes locked on her. "And you look like trouble," he said, tone rougher than intended. She smirked, fingertips tracing the rim of his glass before sliding it toward him.
Then drink.
Maybe trouble's exactly what you need. He watched her, the tilt of her chin, the mischief in her smile, the sadness buried deep in her eyes. And for the first time in a long time, Rafael Romano, the man who ruled entire cities, didn't know what to say. Anabel stood up slowly and circled behind him. Her hand brushed his shoulder, light as air, yet it set fire to every nerve in his body. She leaned closer. Her lips almost touched his ear. "Doesn't feel good, does it?" she whispered. "Being the one who can't stop thinking." Raphael turned sharply, almost catching her lips. But she withdrew. So close. Too close. She looked down at him with a smile that could kill. "Good night, Mr. Romano." And she walked away. Raphael sat there, heartbeat wild, breath uneven, glass still untouched. For years, women had thrown themselves at him. Power drew them. Money kept them. But her? She didn't want either. She wanted control.
And she just took it.
The morning light sliced through the tinted windows of the Scarlet Flame's office, painting golden streaks across Raphael's desk. He'd been staring at a single file for 10 minutes, not reading, thinking of how to make a success out of his fifth company in Rome. A soft knock broke his thoughts. "Sir," said Matteo, his second in command. "Miss Hannah called. She's sick. The doctor says no travel for 2 weeks." Raphael's jaw flexed. Hannah was his personal assistant, efficient, loyal, and the only woman who never flirted or fumbled around him. And now, 2 days before the Italy deal, she was out. "Fine," Raphael muttered. "Get me someone who can handle public appearances, languages, and doesn't feign around power." Matteo hesitated. "There's one person, sir." Raphael's brow lifted.
Who?
Matteo's lips curled slightly. "Anabel." The name alone pulled a flicker across Raphael's expression, part irritation, part something else. "You're joking." "She's smart, fluent in English, handles herself well, knows how to stay calm in a room full of powerful men. And she gets under my skin," Raphael cut in. Matteo's smirk deepened. "Maybe that's exactly what you need, boss." When Anabel got the call, she thought it was a joke. Her? Traveling with him? The same man she had spent weeks teasing and testing just to watch him squirm? But beneath her playful thoughts, something fluttered. Excitement. Italy. A new world. A chance to start rewriting the story of her life. "Tell Mr. Romano I'll be ready by tonight," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Anabel sat near the window, legs crossed, eyes watching the clouds blur past. Raphael sat across from her, in control as always, at least on the outside. But every time she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, every time she crossed her legs, his control cracked a little more. He finally spoke. "Do you always test people, Miss Anabel?" She looked at him unbothered. "Only the ones who think they can't be tested." "You like power games?" "No," she said softly. "I just like reminding powerful men that they bleed too." He stared at her, a faint muscle twitching in his jaw. She didn't flinch. Silence, stretched, sharp, heavy. Then Raphael leaned back, eyes dark, voice low. "You'll be working closely with me in Rome, representing me when needed. And when I say something, you do it. No attitude, no tricks." Anabel tilted her head, smiling faintly. "Of course, boss." But her tone wasn't obedience. It was challenge. Pure, delicious challenge. Later, Rome. They arrived in Italy under a burning orange sunset. Reporters, flashing cameras, bodyguards, chaos surrounded them. Anabel walked beside Raphael, chin lifted, grace in every step. And when she slipped her hand through his arm for the cameras, not out of affection, but performance, he felt it. The spark. The reminder. The loss of control. She leaned closer, whispering for only him to hear. "Relax, Mr. Romano. I'm just playing my part." He didn't answer, but his eyes burned into hers, silent, dangerous. Because for the first time, Rafael Romano couldn't tell who was playing who. Rafael Romano had faced men who begged for their lives. He had watched entire empires bend beneath his name. He had built an empire on discipline, control, and fear. And somehow one woman was ruining all of it. Every glance, every laugh, every sway of her hips made his carefully built walls tremble. That morning, staring at her reflection in the tinted window of their hotel suite, he made a vow. He would stop. No more losing control. No more chasing her. If she wanted to play, he'd let her play alone. It was almost midnight. Rome glittered outside their penthouse suite, the city alive with sound and light. Raphael sat on the couch, going through files, when the sound of soft footsteps made him look up. Anabel emerged from her room, wrapped in a silk robe, her hair slightly damp, her skin glowing from the shower. She walked past him casually, pretending not to notice his gaze burning holes into her back. Then she stopped at the minibar. "You should take a break, boss," she murmured, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Work can wait." He didn't reply. She turned, leaning against the counter, watching him. "Or maybe you're scared to look at me," she teased. Raphael's jaw flexed. He stood up, walked over, close enough that their breaths touched, and looked down into her eyes. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then, without a word, he stepped back. "Get some rest, Miss Anabel." And he walked out. She blinked, stunned. No man had ever walked away from her like that. Especially him. But as the door closed behind him, a small, mischievous smile curved her lips. "So, he wants to play hard to get now," she whispered. The next evening, the marble halls of the Hotel Imperial Roma buzzed with power and luxury. The Italian elites, politicians, and underground bosses all gathered for the international trade deal dinner. Raphael arrived with Anabel at his side, elegance wrapped in red satin. Her entrance was a statement. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Even the wives of diplomats whispered. Raphael's hand rested lightly at her back, possessive without meaning to. But as the night unfolded, she drifted away, laughing softly among the men at the table. Men who were too eager to impress her. One of them, Vittorio Russo, an Italian Mafia associate, leaned in too close, whispering compliments that made her laugh again. Raphael tried to ignore it. He told himself to stay calm, until she picked up a spoon of ice cream.
Slowly,
deliberately. She ran her tongue along it, licking the edge with lazy grace, eyes half-lidded. A tiny drop of ice cream slid down her chest. She gasped softly, dabbing it with a napkin, pretending not to notice the men's hungry stares. Vittorio chuckled, offering her another spoonful. "Bellissima, you should model, not assist." She smiled. And that smile broke Raphael. He stood, his chair scraping the floor sharply. The entire table turned. In one swift motion, he grabbed her wrist, firm but controlled, and pulled her away from the table. Whispers followed them out of the room. The golden hallway was empty and quiet, but Raphael's fury filled the air. He turned to her, eyes dark, voice low but edged with fire. "What the hell was that, Anabel?" She blinked innocently. "What?" "Don't play stupid with me. You were flirting with him." She tilted her head, feigning confusion. "I was being polite. He offered me dessert. Am I not allowed to eat now?" He took a sharp breath, fighting to stay composed. "You know exactly what you were doing." A slow, dangerous smile curved her lips. "And what was I doing, Mr. Romano?" He stared at her, his silence louder than any answer. She stepped closer, voice a whisper. "You told me not to tease you, remember?" Her breath brushed his jaw. "Looks like it's working anyway." He clenched his fists, stepped back, and turned away, walking off before he did something he couldn't undo. And as he disappeared around the corner, Anabel smiled to herself. The night air in Seoul felt colder than usual. The city glowed, but to Anabel, everything seemed distant, muffled by the weight pressing on her chest. Inside the restroom of the Scarlet Flame, she stood frozen, holding a tiny white stick in her trembling hand. Her breath came out uneven. 2 lines.
clear, bold,
Unforgiving. Her knees weakened as she sank to the floor, clutching the test. A storm of emotions crashed inside her. Fear, confusion, disbelief, anger. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind over and over. Pregnant for Rafael Romano. Tears stung her eyes. This wasn't how she imagined her life would be. Not after everything she survived. Not after Dan. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach. "What do I do now?" she whispered. That evening, the club was loud again. Lights, laughter, and liquor masking her chaos. Anabel had forced a smile for hours, pretending everything was fine. But deep down, every sound made her heart race faster. Until the crowd parted, and she saw him.
Dan.
Her breath caught. He stood there, smiling like he had every right to be there, his eyes dark with something cruel. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said, voice low and mocking. "Ignoring my calls, my messages. You think you can just disappear, Annie?" Anabel froze for a second, then found her voice. "Get out, Dan."
He laughed.
"After everything I did for you? You think you can just walk away?" Her fists clenched. "You used me. You lied to me, you." "Watch your mouth," he hissed, pulling his phone from his pocket. "Before I ruin you." Anabel frowned, her heart pounding. "What are you talking about?" Dan smirked and held up his phone screen. Her stomach dropped. There, clear as day, was a photo of her. Naked, vulnerable, taken secretly. Her breath hitched, hands trembling. "Dan, what is this?" "Insurance," he said coldly. "You come back to me, or this goes everywhere. Social media, blogs, news. Imagine your new boss seeing this. The mighty Rafael Romano finding out who his precious assistant really is." Anabel's eyes burned. "You filmed me without my consent." He leaned closer, voice dripping with malice. "You were mine, Annie. Everything about you is mine." Tears welled in her eyes, fury and disgust swirling with heartbreak.
"Get out."
"You'll come crawling back when I post it," he sneered, turning away. "You always do." Anabel stood frozen long after he left, her entire body trembling. Her past had returned, uglier than ever. And now she carried a secret that could destroy everything she'd built. She pressed her hand to her stomach again, whispering shakily, "I won't let him ruin us." But outside, in the dark corners of Seoul, someone had already seen Dan enter the club and reported it to Rafael Romano. The silence in the Scarlet Flame's private office was suffocating. Anabel stood by the window, her reflection trembling in the glass. Behind her, the door slammed open. "Where is he?" Rafael's voice was sharp enough to slice through air. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark, not with the cool indifference he was known for, but with something far more dangerous. Anabel turned slowly, startled. "Rafael."
"Don't," he snapped.
"Don't lie to me, Anabel." He tossed a tablet onto the table. On it was a blurred CCTV screenshot, Dan entering the club earlier that evening. "Who is he?" Rafael demanded. "And why was he here?" Anabel froze, her pulse racing. Her throat tightened, words refusing to come out. "He's no one," she muttered. "No one." Rafael's voice deepened, a low growl. "I have men who tell me otherwise. So I'll ask again, who is he?" The intensity in his eyes broke through her defenses. Anabel's chest rose and fell as the dam inside her finally cracked. She swallowed hard. "He was someone I used to love." Rafael went still. "Used to?" Her voice trembled. "We grew up together in an orphanage. He was my first kiss, my first everything." He said he was dying. I worked, danced, did everything just to pay for his surgery. Tears streamed down her cheeks now, each word sharper than the last. "But he was lying, Rafael.
He was using me."
And when I finally left, he followed me here. Tonight, he threatened me with something horrible." Rafael's expression shifted. The cold, ruthless man within him flickered to life. "What did he threaten you with?" She hesitated, ashamed. "He took a photo of me when I was bathing. He said he'll post it everywhere if I don't go back to him." The room went dead silent. Then the sound of something crashing. Raphael had thrown the tablet across the room, shattering it into pieces. His fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "He filmed you without your consent," he growled. "That bastard is breathing on borrowed time." Anabel flinched at his tone. "Raphael." He stepped closer, his voice low but seething. "I'll handle this. I'll make sure that file never sees daylight." And his jaw tightened. "He'll wish he never touched you." Her eyes widened. Why would you go this far for me?" He stared at her, the questions slicing right through him. Raphael, the man who never explained himself, who didn't have to, suddenly found himself at a loss for words. "Because I can't stand the thought of you hurt," he finally said, voice softer now. You've done something to me, Anabel. I don't even recognize myself anymore. You're the first woman who's ever made me feel." The air between them changed. The anger dissolved into something raw, something unguarded. Anabel's lips parted. She hadn't meant to say it, not yet, not like this, but the truth slipped out, trembling and real. "Raphael, I'm pregnant." The words hung heavy in the air. Raphael froze. His expression went blank, his breath halting mid-sentence. For a man who controlled empires, this knocked the ground from beneath him. "What did you just say?" he asked quietly. Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't plan it. I was going to tell you later, when I figured things out. But it's yours." He stepped closer, his gaze softening with disbelief and something achingly human. "You're carrying my child?" Anabel nodded slowly. Raphael's chest rose and fell heavily, emotions warring behind his eyes. Then, without a word, he pulled her into his arms. It wasn't lust. It wasn't control. It was something deeper, something he hadn't felt in a lifetime. "No one will ever hurt you again," he whispered fiercely. "Not while I'm alive." She melted into his embrace, tears soaking his shirt. For the first time, she didn't feel like a dancer or a pawn. She felt seen. The evening light poured gently into Rafael Romano's penthouse, golden, soft, and alive. The chaos that once surrounded him was gone. The house felt like home. From the living room, he heard her voice. "When the rain is blowing in your face." Anabel's soft, melodic tone filled the room. She stood barefoot on the rug, a wireless mic in her hand, her baby bump barely showing beneath her silk nightshirt. The TV screen glowed with the lyrics of Adele's "Make You Feel My Love." Her hair was loose, her laughter spilling between notes as she sang off-key at times, her voice warm, imperfect, real. Raphael leaned against the doorway, watching her with a look he never thought he'd wear, peace. He'd taken care of Dan weeks ago. Quietly, efficiently. Dan was gone, and so was every shadow that ever tried to touch her peace. Now, only this existed. Her voice, her laughter, the life growing between them. "There's nothing that I wouldn't do," she sang, twirling with the mic, her eyes finding his. "To make you feel my love." Raphael smiled, a slow, rare smile that softened every edge he had. Anabel giggled, blushing under his gaze. "Don't look at me like that, I'll mess up the lyrics," she teased. He walked closer, his tone playful but reverent. "Then mess them up. I like it when you do." He slipped an arm around her waist, pulling her close as she laughed into his chest. The mic dropped to the couch, the song still playing faintly in the background. Raphael lifted her effortlessly, spinning her once, her laughter echoing like music. "You'll make me dizzy," she said breathlessly. "Then I'll hold you steady," he murmured, kissing her forehead. She looked up at him, her smile soft. "You've changed, Rafael Romano. The world's coldest man now melts for lullabies and baby kicks." He chuckled lowly, brushing a thumb across her lips. "You changed me, Anabel. You made me feel. You gave me something money, power, nothing else ever could." Her eyes glistened as she pressed her forehead against his. "And you gave me a reason to start over." For a moment, silence lingered, warm, complete. Raphael traced gentle circles on her belly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for giving me the ability to love a woman, to feel like a man, and to become a father." Anabel's heart swelled. Tears filled her eyes as she leaned in and kissed him, soft and slow. When they pulled apart, Rafael gazed at her, his expression both fierce and tender. "You are," he said quietly, brushing her cheek, "my favorite mistake." Anabel smiled, eyes shimmering. "Then let's never fix it." The music swelled behind them, Adele's voice fading into the soft hum of the city lights. He held her close, the world outside forgotten, just a man who finally learned to love, and the woman who taught him how. Kindly like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts on this.